80% of it.
I would like to open the meeting up tonight for a public hearing. The public hearing is in regards to 15.25 acres of land in the town of Caroline to Tompkins County Agricultural District, number 1. Anyone that's interested in speaking on this behalf, please feel free to make your way to the microphone. I'm going to ask one more time if there is anyone else that would like to speak on behalf of the 15.25 acres of land in the town of Caroline to Tompkins County Agricultural District. Number 1, please use our microphone for public comment. Mike Lane.
Don't want to make a comment on this particular property, but our agricultural district process is so important to our county, and that it recognizes those properties that are being used by our farmers for agriculture. And we need to continue to support that as a vital industry in Tompkins County.
Thank you, Mike Lane. Would anyone else like to add public comment before closing? Okay. I would like to close the public hearing. Good evening and welcome to the Tompkins County Legislature. Today is Tuesday, April 18th. It is 5:32. If you could please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If we could have a roll call of members, please.
Deborah Dawson. Here. Rich John.
Here.
Dan Klein.
Here.
Ann Corman. Mike Lane.
Here.
Greg Muzzy.
Here.
Veronica Piller.
Here.
Lee Shirtliff.
Here.
Mike Sigler.
Here.
Travis Brooks.
Here.
Randy Brown.
Here.
Amanda Champion.
Here.
Susan Curry.
Here.
Ann Corman.
Present.
Shauna Black.
Here.
14 members present.
Thank you. I do have one quick announcement. It is a legislator's birthday today. Greg Muzzy, your parents gave us a call this morning and also sent a birthday cake. It's located in the back room. So we would like to wish you a happy birthday. We're happy to sing if you'd like us to.
No, thank you.
Okay.
I've heard most
That
of your
was a
voices.
threat.
I'd like a roll call vote on that.
As my mom always says, no matter what age, you'll always be my baby. So,
Yes, yes. Well, happy birthday to you. We will have an executive session this evening for 2 reasons. In accordance with Article 7, Section 105 of the Public Officers Law, executive session will be held to discuss collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law and the proposed acquisition, sale, or lease of real property, or the proposed acquisition of securities or sale of exchange of securities held by such public body, but only when publicity would substantially affect the value thereof. Now it is time to move on to privilege of the floor for our public. I would encourage you, if you're in our audience right now, if you would like to speak on privilege of the floor, to please fill out a blue form. It's located at the back table and send it forward. And we have just a few rules for speaking on the privilege of a floor. An individual may speak no longer than 3 minutes. A speaker will not raise their voice. A speaker will not use lewd, obscene, profane, slanderous, or libelous language, or speak or act in a manner that would tend to incite a breach of the peace. A speaker will not speak about county personnel matters. Personnel matters include comments about job performance of named county employees other than elected officials. After 3 minutes, a speaker will leave the microphone and yield the floor. Transferring time to another person is not permitted. A speaker will not cause a disruption, and if asked to leave, will leave the chambers. Now on to our first speaker this evening, Ezra Delaney. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Ezra Delaney, and I'm a board member for the Trumansburg Conservatory of Fine Arts. I'd like to speak in favor of the proposed budget adjustment put forth by the Strategic Tourism Planning Board on packet page 8. Cultural institutions supported by these funds play a pivotal role in the strength of our tourist economy and generate additional economic activity through revitalization of our downtowns and main streets. They provide anchors for community engagement. They contribute directly to the Southern Tier regional economic development goals by attracting and retaining key components of the workforce who value vibrant art culture. The operation of these arts groups create valuable jobs and training opportunities to Tompkins County residents. Our organizations have been deeply impacted by the COVID pandemic and are slowly attracting patrons to our pre-COVID levels, but this will take time. Trumansburg Conservatory has benefited from critical funding from the Strategic Tourism Planning Board, as well as New York State Council on the Arts, but not all organizations have been eligible for support and funding through these programs. Additionally, such as like the shuttered venue operators grants, that wasn't available to all the cultural groups. We were encouraged to apply for Tompkins COVID recovery funds, but they were directed to other county priorities. I'd urge you, your support is critical to our organization and the cultural organizations who need support, just as audience and tourists are returning to our area and venues. I'd just like to close in quoting from the Southern Tier Economic Recovery Strategy Plan. It's imperative that we support our arts and cultural organizations, such as our museums, theaters, galleries, and event places, as well as our local community events, many of which are signature events for our area. This is especially important as the monetary contributions, which many of these organizations depend on, is limited during this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Katie Pierce.
Hi, I'm Katie Pierce. I was a member of the Strategic Planning Board 15 or 20 years ago, and so I knew Stu Stein, who was behind the wonderful idea of enhancing the arts in the area and knowing that that would affect tourism as well as the quality of life of all of us who live here. It was a terrific experience being on that board and watching how effective these funds were. Now, for the last long time, like 20 years, I've been involved with the Hangar Theater. I'm also a special ed teacher, so I'm really tuned into watching children and teenagers. And so I had the opportunity of seeing how the Hangars programs in particular affected the children in the area and the teenagers. I would go and observe in the classroom when there would be a teaching artist working with the students. If we didn't have the theater, we wouldn't have all these extra programs. I keep wanting to tell the grandparents who are bringing their children to kids stuff that, wait, you have to support the whole theater to keep it open. So I'm asking you to support Resolution C. It's very important for our community. We have a quality of life. I raised 4 children here. The quality of life here is terrific, and we have to really be careful of it, really be attuned to what we're used to having. And after the pandemic, we really need to be very careful to support organizations so we can make a good recovery. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next is Julia Taylor.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Julia Taylor. I'm the Executive Director of Civic Ensemble. I'm here to speak to the quality of life impact of the arts in our community, the way that our arts organizations are able to hire and sustain the employment of artists, of people who have been professionally trained as artists, and people who at some point in their lives discover a meaningful relationship to the arts. In Civic Ensemble's reentry theater program, people who are formerly incarcerated, court-involved, who have experienced substance abuse disorders and treatment, are coming together to create new theater that reflects their lived experiences. And each week, as we're creating theater, imagining a community that we want to live in, where we strive to all thrive, this community is rooted in a place where people feel like they belong, people feel like they matter, and they're doing that through their expression in the arts. They're doing that through their creativity, their community building, finding a place where they feel like they matter. And we see that that happens with the reentry community. We're seeing that happen with young people. We're seeing that happen with people whose stories have not necessarily had a place on the professional stage historically. And here in Tompkins County, because of years of support from the Strategic Tourism Planning Board and others in our community, we've been able to support these individuals and partner organizations. We're seeing that how people are able to continue to thrive. And so I want to encourage you to support this resolution, to continue your support of the arts in this community, knowing that that support reaches really broad sectors of our community and reaches people who have not necessarily had the chance educationally or professionally to engage in this work prior and are finding it incredibly meaningful and finding a place to belong and matter in Tompkins County. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Joey Steenhagen.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Joey Steenhagen. I'm the founder and artistic director of Running to Places Theater Company. At Running to Places, we aspire to be a community theater for the whole community. We serve middle and high school students from all across Tompkins County, giving them the opportunity to make new friends, have a great time putting on musicals, and learn critical life skills along the way. Things like working under pressure with a deadline, assimilating direction gracefully, improvising when the unexpected happens, imagination, time management, independence, physical fitness, public speaking skills, and so much more. We believe that every young person should have access to these life-changing youth development opportunities on a level playing field. And we believe that so strongly that years ago we made participation completely free for all of them. Last year, we closed that circle, making attendance at all of our shows completely free for everyone. After all, buying theater tickets isn't in every family's budget. Invariably, the first thing people ask us is, how? For us, it was more important to first answer the question, why? In order for every young person to decide if practicing theater is right for them and therefore gain access to all of the powerful youth development that goes along with it, they first need to have the opportunity to experience theater in the first place. Since this policy change, we've seen our audiences triple. We're now seeing roughly 3,000 to 4,000 people attending in a single weekend. According to the surveys folks complete when they register for tickets, between 75 and 85% of audience members say that tickets being free was somewhat or very important to their ability to attend. We're opening doors that have been locked to so many of our neighbors. Running to Places relies on our community to support this: private donations, corporate sponsorships, and grants. Support we received from the federal government as a result of the pandemic has dried up, and like everyone else, we're scrambling to secure new funding while remaining true to our core values. And like everyone else, we're struggling to keep our heads above water. We provide a service that goes far beyond a fun time in theater, although that has inherent value too. We're providing a critical lifeline to adolescents who've been devastated by the isolation and trauma of the pandemic. We provide them with a sense of belonging, community, acceptance, creativity, positive role modeling from adults and their peers, and a safe place for young people to express their feelings and practice being productive members of our society. I believe that you recognize the value of what we offer this community, as was reflected in the nearly perfect score you gave our application for the Tompkins County Recovery Fund. Despite the fact that neither Running to Places nor any other arts organizations received support from that grant, I'm hopeful that these new ACOD funds, through them, this body can ensure that our community will remain a beacon in the southern tier for providing our people with more than a roof over their heads, but also a quality of life that features beauty, love, generosity, and a belief in the next generation. We love the work that we do with the children of our community, and I hope that you will help us continue to do that work. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian Eden.
Brian Eden, good evening. I'm here to support the packaging resolution. Climate and Sustainable Energy Advisory Board supports the strong waste reduction and recycling bill that would help address the solid waste and plastic pollution crisis, improve and support municipal recycling programs, and reduce our exposures to toxic chemicals. This legislation holds producers, rather than taxpayers, responsible for assuming a portion of the costs for end-of-life management of packaging waste, prioritizes waste prevention, prohibits a robust list of toxic chemicals in packaging, establishes a funding mechanism to ensure municipalities are reimbursed for their recycling, composting, and waste reduction operation, and invests in reuse refill infrastructure. Legislation to reform New York State solid waste policy must seek to achieve multiple goals, but importantly, any reform must start at the top of the waste hierarchy with waste reduction. The residents of Tompkins County have long supported waste reduction and recycling programs. In the mid-1990s, I was a member of a local organization called People for the Reduction of Disposables, PROD. Private efforts soon gained the support of the County Solid Waste Division, ultimately the Recycling and Materials Management, which in turn provided support for the launch of Finger Lakes Reuse. The resolution was developed by consensus with Barb and Kat from RMM. The county faces many challenges to continue to operate a progressive waste reduction program. Manufacturers, retailers have become increasingly consolidating, producing ever greater amounts of excess packaging, much of it consisting of blended materials that may be both toxic and unrecyclable. The county has a decreasing leverage to bargain with major waste haulers such as Casella for fair prices in the recyclables market. We've long realized that plastics have represented both environmental and public health concerns. With cheap and plentiful shale gas, new cracker plants have been constructed in western Pennsylvania and the Ohio Valley. It's been projected plastic productions may double or triple by 2050. This was a segment on NBC News last night, growing numbers of chemical explosions, fires, and transport accidents, many involving the elemental constituents of plastic. We need a strong EPR legislation that will provide communities a framework for balancing the environmental, social, and economic factors of waste reduction. Some of its features will be to establish reduction of targets and annual recycling rates, create a packaging use reduction institute to provide technical support to producers, the establishment of usage and fee standards by the New York State DEC, structure a producer responsibility and recycling organization with all interested stakeholders represented, and an Office of Inspector General to ensure compliance with the regulations and the payment of fees. This legislation will face stiff opposition from those who are profiting from the status quo. We've proposed excellent policies, and with developing technology, this campaign will be successful. We just need the will.
Thank you. Robin Tropper Herbal.
Hello, I'm Robin Tropper Herbal, the Executive Director of the Community School of Music and Arts. Thank you for the opportunity to voice CSMA's support for the proposed budget adjustment for the tourism program, including the additional funds for the ACOD program. CSMA was founded 63 years ago, and we've been an ACOD grantee since 2016. Our arts instruction programs we're most well known for our arts instruction programs, as well as hosting ongoing events and performances in our historic 300 capacity venue, one block from the Ithaca Commons. We've been a pillar of downtown arts and culture for a long time. I'm here to speak on behalf of our fellow Tompkins County nonprofits in the arts and culture sector to implore you to not take our existence for granted. Our sector was among the first to shut down when the pandemic hit and the last to reopen. The recovery period for all of us has been exceedingly slow and prolonged. Just to give you an idea, throughout 2022, at CSMA, attendance for all of our programs definitely remained well below 2019 levels, and our earned revenue remained at approximately 35% on average below 2019 levels each month. And so we had to scale back programs significantly. Simultaneously, expenses have skyrocketed. So labor costs, utilities, cleaning, maintenance only exacerbate the recovery process. So we need to earn much more now than we did in 2019, not the same. Just for context, I want to share with you a little bit about NISCA COVID impact survey conducted just this past February by the New York State Council on the Arts amongst their statewide grantees. And lo and behold, our situation here is not in any kind of geographic vacuum. The results of that survey echo that the sector statewide is still in very active recovery mode, and organizations anticipate staying that for at least this year and beyond. Overall, the sense from that report was that 2023 is a make or break year for the arts and culture sector. So please help pass this resolution to help infuse the arts and culture organizations with the funds we need to support recovery, to ease the burden. We're stretched so thin already during this critical time, and to assure that all of us can recover, and to ensure the regrowth of the county's amazing reputation as an arts and cultural destination. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is one of my most favorite hockey dads, Doug Levine.
Hi, Hockey Mom. Hi, Shauna. Hi, good afternoon, members of the legislature, members of the community. My name is Doug Levine. I am, for the last 14 plus years, I've been serving happily as the executive director of the State Theater in downtown Ithaca. And I also am the vice chair of the Strategic Tourism Planning Board. And a lot of my colleagues have already stated some of what I wanted to say, so I'm not going to repeat that. But I just want to continue to thank the legislature for your continued support of the arts, and I do just hope it continues. Not only are we important to the quality of life in this community, we are a huge economic driver. Just this past weekend, my friend here, Joey, had his group Running to Places. They had 4 shows at the State Theater, and over 3,500 people attended those shows on Saturday and Sunday. Tomorrow night, we have Father John Misty coming to the State Theater, and we have over 1,200 tickets sold. And I looked it up before I got here. Over 35% of those ticket buyers are coming from outside of Tompkins County to come here for a show tomorrow night. So I just want to relay the importance of that. The other thing, I know Robin kind of just touched on this, but I just want to reiterate, the State Theater was shut down for 20 months. 20 months we were shut down. One of the first to close down, one of the last businesses to reopen. And during those 20 months, people like you and me were basically taught and told to stay home for those 20 months. My parents learned how to stream movies on Netflix. And those people are not suddenly just flipping the switch and coming out in droves again. They might be going to those beautiful sanitized hotels downtown where they're just them and their family in that one sterile room, but they're not necessarily flocking back to these rooms of 1,500, 1,600 people. So we are hurting, and we are going to need continued support. And that's about all I have to say. Thank you again for your support, and I do hope it continues. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is Shirley Schwartz.
Hi, everyone. I'm Shirley Schwartz. I'm the producing artistic director at the Hangar Theater, and it's a pleasure to be here. I'm trying to figure out what to say that isn't repeating what some of my incredibly thoughtful and esteemed arts colleagues have already said, and also what Katie Pierce, longtime Hangar supporter, board member, and community member, spoke so eloquently about before. I talked to Doug a little bit before coming here today, and I said, am I supposed to talk about how we bring people into the community or how we help the people who live in the community? And he was kind of like, both. You talk about both. And so I do want to share a couple of just statistics coming out of the Hangar Theater about how we and all of my arts colleagues continue to make Tompkins County an incredible place to live, work, and visit. I can share that in 2022 in our season, we played to enthusiastic crowds throughout the summer, and our out-of-town attendance, which we classify as patrons from 50-plus miles away, and of course these numbers all come from applying for ACOD grants, which we are so incredibly grateful to have the support of those grants, increased from 19% in 2021 to 27% in 2022. our percentage of attendance from outside Tompkins County, so even a little bit closer in, but that was 44% in 2022, up from 30% in 2021. And I share those numbers just to say again, we are one of the driving factors that bring people to experience our incredible community, and they spend money here. They buy meals. They invest in hotel rooms. They go shop in our shops, and that feels really important. Speaking to how we serve our community here, in 2023, our Project for Artists in the Schools classroom program, and that is our program where Hanger Theater teaching artists enter fourth grade classrooms around the county, work with young people to create their own plays. Those plays are then performed by the kids, the scripts that they have written for their families and other invested community members. And we are back in full force with our Project 4 program. I want to share, I see I have 44 seconds. And I am going to share at least one story out of those classrooms. Teaching artist Marie Sirakos just finished her 2-classroom residency of fourth graders at Beverly J. Martin Elementary, and they culminated in early April. Marie shared about one play that they wrote was called The Welcome Warriors. It was set in the distant future in a time when people had forgotten how to be kind to one another, and even the meanings of the words fun and laughter. So a group of children in the world decided to change things and teach people how to be kind to one another and how to have fun again. This came out of the fourth grade classroom at Beverly J. Martin. The kids wrote and performed this play. I think that says it all. Thank you.
Thank you. Megan Barber.
Thank you. I'm Megan Barber. I live in the town of Caroline. I'm the executive director of the Community Arts Partnership, and I sit on the Strategic Tourism Planning Board. And it's really an honor to be here tonight with my colleagues in the arts and culture sector, and it's great to be here with all of you. I am here also to share my support for Resolution C, the budget adjustment for the tourism program. And in particular, I want to address the importance of the additional funding for the ACOD grants. As Robin mentioned, right now across the country, across the state, and right here in Tompkins County, arts and culture organizations are still very much struggling with the continued impacts of the pandemic. Audiences and donors have still not returned to pre-pandemic levels, and federal recovery funding has come to a close. I recently surveyed the ACOD grantees to see how they were doing, and 6 out of 11 of them said they were at medium to high risk of permanent closure within the next 12 months. So this is a serious issue that we're facing. This additional proposed funding will go a long way to stabilizing vulnerable organizations and the sector as a whole. It will help organizations make important investments in staffing and operations that will really pay off for years to come in terms of economic impact, tourism impact, and local quality of life. I know I speak for many families when I say that arts and culture are really at the heart of why so many of us love to live here. I thank you for your support, and I hope you'll support this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. David Squires.
Good evening. I know a little about the room tax. Actually, Mike Lane probably knows as much as I do because he's been on the board for many years. But I was there, and I was actually responsible for collection, the administration of the tax, and I also had the opportunity to knock on doors and speak to reluctant businesses about the room tax. So I just wanted to, I have a little history, and but I also want to, I was around to observe the room tax program development envisioned by Stu Stein, chair of the legislature, where occupancy tax revenues are used for tourism development initiatives to promote economic development, enhance quality of life in Tompkins County through tourism. I will acknowledge that there's always been a tension in the allocation of the room tax funds because you have very little opportunity to discretion on revenues. New York State dictates so much stuff. But, and I've been concerned about the room tax allocation to the arts in the past couple of years. Over, just in recent history, a significant amount was shifted from basically the arts organizations to economic development. And what that impact has been is that the share going to the arts has basically been flat, and yet there's been more creative organizations come forward, so the share of money going to individual organizations has actually diminished. So this resolution will be very helpful. I'm greatly concerned that because room tax is discretionary in many eyes, that it will be shifted away from the arts. And I urge you to resist that temptation. I mean, I know there's great pressure on the tax levy, and to use the room tax to fund something, on one hand, would reduce the stress on the tax levy on the other. But I think that arts is an essential to the quality of life in the county. I mean, there's clearly the quality of life can be shown by just a few examples. The Hangar, as Shirley said, their fourth grade playwriting project, the Kitchen Theater's Pay What You Can program for ticketing. At Cineropolis, where I'm the treasurer, they're hosting Storyhouse's Black Film Festival. And there's countless other programs like Joyce Steenhagen's organization that benefit. So I ask that, thank you for the resolution that you're going to reallocate the.
Thank you. Michelle Courtner.
Hi, I'm Michelle Courtner. I'm the Executive Director of the Science Center, and I'm coming after all these other people who have spoken in support of this resolution to support the budget allocation, and especially the ACOD. We are one of the recipients and have been for a number of years of ACOD, and it's been extremely helpful to us. As you all know, we are still recovering from the pandemic. Everybody has said that already. Not only that, we are coming out of that and coming into economic uncertainty, high inflation, all the other things that we all know so well. And as everybody has said before me, these cultural organizations, the Science Center and all these others, are the fabric of this community. We bring in tourists and we support the community that lives here. And we ask you to support this budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Lois Levitan.
Good evening. My name is Lois Levitan. I'm speaking tonight in support of the Recycling Infrastructure Act that's up for debate and passage at the New York State Legislature level. So I spent the last decade or so of my career at Cornell initiating and then directing a program called the Recycling Agricultural Plastics Project. Much to my surprise, I became deeply immersed in the field of plastics and plastic recycling, or at least in the somewhat fruitless effort to develop systems and markets to recycle plastics. And why do I say fruitless? Took away some take-home messages that I want to share with you. One is that the cost of collecting, cleaning, and transporting used plastics, once they've been dispersed across the landscape into homes and farms, is typically far greater than the market value of those plastics. In other words, recycling cannot be supported as a market issue. It needs community and governmental support. Part of the issue is that most plastic products, ones that you might think of as very simple, like the plastic films used to cover the bales of agricultural products that you see in the fields all over the place. You might think, oh, these are a really simple product. We can easily recycle them. But the reality is that virtually all plastic products are a mix of specific plastic resins, like polyethylenes, with other chemicals that are added to provide specific desirable characteristics such as strength, malleability, longevity, UV protection, etc. And once these additives are mixed with the pure resin type, it's difficult to impossible for processors and manufacturers to make use of these plastics in new products. So the conundrums of recycling, both the costs and the technical constraints, cannot be solved, I don't think, after 10 years of trying, on the municipal and consumer level. They must be addressed at the product design stage, both to reduce the quantity of plastics used in packaging and to better ensure that the products can be recycled. So I want to make one other comment about packaging. Why are the tissues sold at Wegmans wrapped in 2 layers of plastics? Why isn't there just a cardboard box that you take home? Why are my cucumbers now all of a sudden recycled in 2 layers of plastic? In other words, packaging has become ridiculous. It's gone way over the top. So I think that the bill before the New York State Legislature, the Packaging Reduction and Recycling Infrastructure Act, is a good first step, but it should have happened decades ago, and we have to keep pushing on it. I hope for your unanimous support of this resolution. Thanks.
Thank you. Next is Diane Cohen. I'd also like to thank Diane. She offered me a tour yesterday of the Reuse Center, and I got to meet some of her staff there. It was a fun time. I really appreciate that.
Great. Thanks, Shauna. Thanks for coming. And hello, everyone. I'm Diane Cohen, and I'm speaking today as a 40-year resident of Tompkins County. I'm here to speak very briefly regarding the resolution to support and encourage the Packaging Reduction and Recycling Infrastructure Act. As it's been very, I'm going to speak very briefly because you heard a lot of details about it. I think you've learned more through the people, huge thanks to the people who worked on it. And we're hoping that it's going to be passed and signed by the governor, and it will be better for the environment, and it will ultimately save local governments and taxpayers money. As some of you probably know, I'm the executive director of Finger Lakes Reuse. I've been attending state and national materials management conferences for the last 22 years, and my professional focus is on sustainable material management issues and challenges. And this resolution will demonstrate that Tompkins County will continue to be an environmental leader in New York State, thanks to Barb Ekstrom and her team, and I'm glad to see Barb, who I thought she retired, but I see she's in this meeting, so hi, Barb. So thanks to everybody who put this resolution forward. There will be a number of changes necessary to handle our waste materials more sustainably and effectively, and this is one of the many steps we'll need to take. I believe this act, along with other changes we make to how we collect and market waste materials, can be used not only to improve the environment, but also to energize local economies in the process. So thank you for your time and consideration. Good to see you all.
Thank you. Next is Kate Donahue.
Good evening. My name is Kate Donahue, and I am the Executive Director of Cinemapolis. I want to briefly add my voice to those who've come to support ACOD funding and supports for the arts in general. 3 very brief points I would like to make about Cinemapolis. We just hosted the Finger Lakes Environmental Film Festival. And during that film festival, we had filmmakers flying in from Los Angeles and elsewhere all around the country. And that's just a small example of the ways in which arts organizations drive tourism and economic activity all year round. For Cinemapolis in particular, I think it's worth understanding that we are offering entertainment and cultural activity 7 days a week. So even on our slow days, we are welcoming people to downtown Ithaca and playing a vital role in creating a thriving, vibrant downtown space. Third, like so many of my colleagues who have come to talk, I want to emphasize the fact that we do not exist in isolation. So many nonprofits and other community-based organizations rely on Cinemapolis to help them get their message out, to help them build a community of support around the work they're doing. We help communicate their mission through the power of film and through special events. We also work with educators to complement their curricula through film as well. And we are very grateful to be part of that vibrant network. And I want to thank you all for this time, this opportunity, and for your support of the arts. Thank you.
Thank you. And we also have one person here for a public comment on Zoom, and that is Priscilla Hummel.
Hello.
Hi, Priscilla.
Hi there. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. As mentioned, I am Priscilla Hummel. I am the founder and producing artistic director of Walking on Water Productions. We are a small nonprofit musical theater company that has been serving artists and audiences in Tompkins County since 2017. And I'm here to speak about the funds reallocation of the Strategic Tourism and Planning Board, much like several of my other wonderful colleagues this evening. And I'm asking you to please support Resolution C. The arts are a vital part of this community. All the organizations are working to make access for everyone in this community. And some of those efforts include pay what you can and free tickets, as we've heard from a couple of other organizations. Walking on Water is another one of those companies that is working toward providing services such as these. The arts enhance the quality of life for all, not just for those who are already involved or who are interested, but also for those who would otherwise have no access or experience. The arts employ people who are paying taxes, buying homes, living in our community, and contributing as artists, citizens, and volunteers across the county. 2022, much like many other organizations, was Walking on Water's most financially challenging year. We saw a drop significantly in sponsorships and individual giving. Times are tough, and we definitely understand that. However, we desire to continue to make excellent theater experiences for this community. In spite of the dips in house counts as folks are turning more and more towards other activities, we are still striving to keep our doors open to make this community a better place. And it is not an exaggeration, but quite a truth that many of us small theaters and larger theaters at that may need to close our doors in the very near future. The arts have served this community, and now more than ever, we need a partnership. We need your support. Please do not turn the key and lock the doors. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, it is the time in our agenda where municipal officials would give report, and I just want to encourage my colleagues. Jorge from the City of Ithaca did send us an email earlier today with updates from the city. He also said if there are any questions, feel free to email him back. He cannot attend this evening. Hi, how you doing, Mark? Mark Whitmer from the town of Caroline, is that right?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. Hi, everybody.
Welcome.
It's been a while, so I thought it'd be nice to come in person and see the legislature tonight. And so I'll just give you a brief update. I want to thank you for the Recovery Fund Award to support broadband build-out in Caroline. It's been a pressing need for a long time that we've been trying to figure out. So we are committing that award along with our ARPA funds to developing a community broadband system in Caroline. We're working with Hunt Engineering on the feasibility study now, and so that's very exciting. I very much appreciate the support for that. And then the other thing I'll report on, some of you may know that Caroline has been working on developing zoning regulations. And so any town that does this for the first time, as you probably know, appoints a zoning commission and often that's composed of a planning board. Ours was composed of planning board members and 4 volunteers from the public. So after a little more than 2 years of pretty hard work, they presented to the board a draft zoning law. They adopted that on March 27th and then presented that to the board at our April 5th meeting. So the town board will now be reviewing that and discussing it and moving forward from that point. So just thought I'd give everybody an update on that, and thank you. Yeah.
Great. Actually, if you want to stay up for a few minutes, there might be some questions for you, if that's all right.
Happy to.
Thank you for coming tonight. It's nice to see you.
Yeah.
Any questions for Mark? Okay. Well, I guess you're off the hook tonight.
Okay. Thanks, Sean.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Come back. Okay, next it is privilege of the floor for our legislators. Michael Lane.
Just wanted to say how nice it was to see David Squires here tonight. David, our former Director of Finance, who gave us a little history on the room tax. And sometime in the future, maybe he'd come in and give us a history of the sales tax agreement with the city of Ithaca. I can't think of anyone who knows more about it than he does.
Thank you, Mike.
That's tongue-in-cheek, David. You don't have to.
Any other legislator? Any announcements or anything going on in your districts? Veronica Piller?
Thank you. If it's going to be this quiet, I'll just briefly mention over the weekend I went to a community outreach event hosted by the Alliance of Families for Justice, which is a New York State organization that supports the families of people who are incarcerated or people returning from prison. And I only got there right at the end, but it was a really wonderful event and space. And in particular, I got to see some folks from the Reentry Theater, which I would explain, but one of our public commenters already did, presenting a scene that they were working on that was, co-written by a bunch of the actors and other folks. And most strikingly, a lot of the people involved spoke about how critical the Reentry Theater community was to their essentially successful reentry into out of the criminal legal system. And so I just thought that was worth mentioning as we're sort of thinking big questions about what's the future of our jail and homelessness and drug problems and things like that are all interconnected, and this has been a piece that's been really good for people. Also at that event, Cassandra Ponton and Tony Seidel, who are both members of our, both volunteering some time for our jail task force, got awarded a couple of fellowships from the Alliance of Families for Justice, so congrats to them.
Thank you. Any other legislators? Lee Shirtliff?
I just want to mention this weekend is across New York State with the fire service is the Recruit New York weekend. You will find some open houses and different events going on in your volunteer fire departments throughout the area, and I'd encourage my colleagues, if you see some activity at your local fire station, stop in and say hello and get a look at what they're doing there. Among the many groups that were affected by the pandemic were your volunteer fire and rescue agencies. New York State Firemen's Association, Firefighters Association has recently published a study, a renew of a study that talks as to what the savings are to the taxpayers through the use of volunteer fire departments. It's somewhere in the $4 billion a year range, and it's a study that can be found online, and I'll certainly be willing to share it. But more critically, our numbers are estimated to be at about 80,000 volunteers statewide, and at one point it was well in excess of 100,000. And as I stated, the pandemic has affected all these departments. Loss of membership, members that aren't able to be as active or feel safe to be as active as they once were, and the fundraising has taken a major hit. And so when we talk about community organizations, nonprofits that are still reeling from the pandemic, think of those two, and please do what you can to show them the support that we have to keep those critical life safety services going. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Next is Greg Muzzy.
Yeah, thank you. I always like when we have a full house for public comment. So I just want to thank everybody for taking time out of their day. I know that it's resources are tight, time is tight, and the decision to come and sit here and advocate on your behalf is admirable and appreciated. So I thank you for that. I think we should be encouraging more advocacy across all fronts. And it's always good to hear from our constituents, and this is the best way to do that. I know we received a number of comments from other partners in our tourism program in our email, so hopefully everybody had a chance to look at that. I know the former chair of the STPB and chair of the budget committee of the STPB, Kelly Cartmill, had sent something in. Peggy Coleman, the director of the CVB, also sent in comment as well. So I just want to thank them for doing that in advance. But yeah, just appreciate everybody coming out. Hopefully we can move Resolution C forward tonight. Thank you.
Any other comments? Rich John?
I just wanted to mention that the Ethics Advisory Board, which we are mandated to have by New York State law, is a fairly sleepy advisory board. We review the financial reports from all of the legislators and many county employees. But we're also charged with responding when there is an ethics complaint. And nearly a year ago, we received a very extensive request for us to render an advisory opinion. And I wanted to commend the volunteers on the advisory board who spent nearly a year working very hard to arrive at the advisory opinion that we issued on this Monday. One of them is with us tonight, Brian Eden. But I think none of them understood how much work this was going to be. We held 21 meetings. We reviewed, I can't tell you how many documents. We did interviews. We did written submissions that we reviewed, and reviewed a lot of writing regarding how to consider all the information we had to digest. And agree or disagree with the result, you can certainly see it represents some real dedication and work from these volunteers. So I didn't want the moment to pass without saying thank you once again.
Thank you, Rich. Ann Corman?
Thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks for letting me attend remotely as I'm recuperating from my knee surgery today. I just wanted to thank the folks that came in and spoke to us today and the folks that sent us in comments. I do recognize that arts is one of the main drivers for people to come visit here, to move here, to stay here. They provide a lot of activities for youth. And it's also not the first time that I've heard that many arts organizations are on the brink of closing. So as folks said, I hope we can pass Resolution C as is. And just one more thing, I just wanted to say, Veronica Piller, the vice chair for Peak, she'll be doing that. She'll be talking about the Peak, sorry, kind of out of it. She'll be helping with the Peak presentation tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Ann. Any other questions or comments, announcements? Okay, Deborah Dawson.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. It's my pleasure tonight to move to appoint Lorraine Laurie Scarrett as the new Tompkins County Director of Finance. Effective May 1st, 2023, she'll be starting at the work rate of a management level grade 91 position, starting with an annual vacation leave entitlement of 20 days and we are waiving the residency requirement in appointing her.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder, please? Seconded by Veronica Piller. And if there is any need to go into executive session, if you could please voice that now for discussion. Okay, and we are going to do a roll call for this and a roll call for the rest of the votes this evening.
Deborah Dawson?
Yes.
Rich John?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Greg Muzzy?
Yes.
Veronica Piller?
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff?
Yes.
Mike Sigler? Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
Yes.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Susan Curry?
Yes.
Shauna Black?
Yes.
14 ayes. That's unanimous vote.
And Lori, we would love for you to come up and say a few words if you'd like.
I would like to thank each and every one of you for placing your faith and trust in me in this role. I am greatly looking forward to serving all of you. I bring to you over 22 years of governmental finance experience in a county of a very similar size. And as we all know, some things are the same and some things are different. And so I'm sure I have a lot to share with each of you, and I'm sure each of you have a lot to share with me, and I greatly look forward to that. I also would like to let you know that I've been watching Tompkins County as an organization from afar for quite a few years, and I have always wanted to come here and work. So this is kind of like a dream come true to me. So I am very excited. I've heard great things about the team here, and I will say in the last few weeks going through the interview process and today coming to meet people, I concur. This is a great team here, and I am very, very impressed and very honored and grateful to be a part of it. And I'd like to give a special shout out to Ruby and Larry for helping me through the interview process, and also to Drew and the finance team today who were very warm and welcoming, and I greatly appreciate it. And thank you all. I look forward to working with each of you.
Thank you, Lori. And we do want to thank Drew and the staff in accounting for the past 4-5 months now. They have really picked up and worked as a team and been short-staffed. And we are very grateful for their hard work and their dedication to our county. Next, I'm going to move on. I do have a very short chair's report. I want to highlight the upcoming FEMA open house events regarding the flood insurance rate map changes. On April 26th at Ithaca High School and 27th at the Whole Health on Brown Road from 4:30 to 8:30 both days. FEMA representatives will be on hand to answer questions for residents about the potential changes in flood maps and the insurance requirements that come with both of them. This is an issue impacting several of our municipalities, most notably in the city of Ithaca. FEMA estimates that there are over 800 structures in the city of Ithaca that are going to be newly identified, that are going to be located in the 100-year flood zone, requiring flood insurance. Another 40 in the town of Caroline, 50 in the town of Dryden, 50 in the town of Newfield, and dozens more in other municipalities. I urge all of us as elected officials to share the information on the open houses and flood insurance with our constituents. I think many of us probably received emails today noting the properties in our municipalities and in our districts that are considered new to those FEMA flood maps. I recognize also that there are planning efforts going on at the municipality level regarding flood mitigation, and I would point any resident seeking more information to their municipality or to the city's flood information webpage for that. More public information and FAQs will be coming in the next weeks, months regarding flood risk, insurance, and mitigation. Please make sure to continue to share that information with your constituents. Thank you. Next, we will move on to reports from our County Administrator, Lisa Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a couple of brief updates for you tonight. The first is to happily report that after a very thorough search process for Homeless Services Coordinator, we've extended the offer to Tammy Baker for this role, and she's accepted. It's a 2-year position whose role it is to advance the county's efforts to address homelessness. So we look forward to welcoming her on board. Her start date will be on May 15th. And then secondly, we've been working hard with staff to prepare the 2024 budget projections for the upcoming budget retreat, an effort which is made all the more challenging without a final New York State budget. And there's still a great deal of uncertainty as to when that state budget is going to be passed. But because of this, we're pretty much forced to forecast as conservatively as possible and assume the worst on the mandates, including the Medicaid EF-MAP funding. And with the rationale that if we receive better news, it will be easier to add money back midstream than in the budget process than it will be to cut even further than expected. But the broader economic indicators and trends around local need also underscore the need for us to proceed with caution this year. So all of this and more happy news for us to share at the budget retreat next week. And that's my report.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Lisa? Okay, thanks, Lisa. Next is County Attorney Bill Troy.
Good evening. I can tell you that we have a number of things going on in the office. The most urgent for me is a trial starting tomorrow in federal court down in Binghamton. It involves a claim by somebody that one of our deputies used excessive force in arresting him. The case will be heard without a jury by consent of the parties, and we should have a verdict probably in several weeks, because the judge has said the parties can have a period of time to prepare briefs after the testimony is taken. So that will start tomorrow. By week's end, it should be done in terms of the testimony. And we have any number of cases coming along in our system. I can bring you up to date as we get closer to something actually happening in them. But we're doing a lot of discovery right now where each side's looking at each other's documents and theories of liability. Other than that, day-to-day things happen, and material appears on my desk, and we try to process it as quickly as we can to get it back to people. But we're chugging along.
Any questions or comments for Bill Troy? Thank you, Bill. Next, Director of Finance, Drew Brayman.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks, Shauna, for the acknowledgement earlier. We have a really great team here in finance, and during this vacancy, I think they've all pulled together. And, you know, I've been out for some surgery and recovery, and they've just really pulled up, so I appreciate all of them. They've really come together. We look forward to Lori starting in a couple weeks. I did email the legislator out the listing of the tax foreclosures. We did go out Monday and visited each of those properties. And I'm happy to report of the 22 parcels I sent you, I did mention 3 parcels were being removed. 2 of them are stormwater. One of them is a municipality is looking to buy it if it is not redeemed. We've actually, since we went out on Monday, 1 owner came in and started an installment agreement, and 1 owner came in and paid. So we're down to 17 properties even after this last 3-4 days. So it's been a great effort. And if anyone has any questions.
Michael Lane.
Drew, I just wondered, did any appear to be occupied?
Yes, we only had talked to maybe 3 or 4 total, which is strange, visiting 20 parcels, and usually about half of them are occupied. One was a young adult in his teens that seemed a little bit miffed that I think we were interrupting his game time. You could see him inside, and we knocked 2 or 3 times before he came to the door. But yes, there were a number that we felt were residential and currently inhabited. So we did tape the signs to the door, and hopefully they'll, well, 2 of them we did hear from. So, you know, and 10 of them are, I think only 2 of them were commercial, and then the other 8 were just vacant lots, some small slivers, some were, I think the largest was 12 or 13 acres. So.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments for Drew? Great. Thanks again, Drew.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any resolutions to be added or withdrawn from our agenda? I see none. Consent agenda, resolutions and appointments to be voted on as a group unless any member of the legislature requests that a resolution or appointment be instead included separately, individually, as part of the business of standing or special committees. Advisory board appointments. Strategic Tourism Planning Board, Douglas Levine, Arts and Culture Representative, term expires December 31st, 2024. Rick Manning, at-large member, term expires December 31st, 2024. Tompkins County Public Library Board of Trustees, Jamelia Simon, member, term expires December 31st, 2024. Tompkins County Historical Commission, George Boyer, member, term expires December 31st, 2025. Environmental Management Council, Mark DeVocus, oh boy, I didn't say that one right. Devokaitis. Thank you. At-large member, term expires December 31st, 2023. Lisa Strayer, at-large member, term expires December 31st, 2024. Water Resources Council, David Wolf, Environmental Management Council Representative, term expires December 31st, 2023. Office for the Aging Advisory Board, Deborah Rowe, Caroline Brooktondale Representative, term expires December 31st, 2025. Resolution A, budget adjustment, Tompkins County Office for the Aging, American Rescue Plan Act, Ithaca Neighborhood Housing Services, ID 11611. Resolution B, authorizing a public hearing on proposed local law number B of 2023, amending Article 27 of the county charter, ID 11472. Resolution C, budget adjustment, tourism program.
Off.
Okay. Resolution D, scheduling a public hearing for 2023 New York State Community Development Block Grant Assistance, ID 11584. Resolution E, resolution authorizing the 2023 New York State Department of Labor and the Office of Employment and Training Ancillary Agreement, ID 11599. Resolution F, award of contract, Cuga Compost, ID 11621. Resolution G, authorizing a contract amendment with Gravity Renewables to lengthen the existing remote net metering agreement at the Waterloo Hydroelectric Facility and to enable Gravity Renewables to sell renewable energy certificates on the county's behalf, ID 11610. Resolution H, resolution urging.
I'd like to remove that one.
Resolution G?
H.
H, okay. Okay. And if I could have a mover for the consent agenda, please. Moved by Amanda Champion, seconded by Veronica Piller. And if we could do a roll call.
Deborah Dawson.
Yes.
Rich John.
Yes.
Dan Klein.
Yes.
Ann Corman.
Yes.
Mike Lane.
Yes.
Greg Muzzy.
Yes.
Veronica Piller.
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff.
Yes.
Mike Sigler.
Yes.
Travis Brooks.
Yes.
Randy Brown.
Yes.
Amanda Champion.
Yes.
Susan Curry.
Yes.
Shauna Black.
Yes.
14 ayes. It's unanimous vote.
Thank you. Okay. So I think what makes sense right now is, since we have so many people that are staying around for the STPB and perhaps even the recycling, the package reduction resolution, why don't we do the package reduction first? And then we can move forward with the STPB resolution prior to us giving reports. Does that sound all right with everyone? Okay. So Ann Corman and your partner in crime, Veronica Piller, if you could introduce Resolution H for us.
Sure. I can move Resolution H, or do we need to move and second it first?
Yeah.
Yeah. So resolution urging the New York State Legislature to pass a strong packaging reduction and recycling infrastructure act and expand the state's bottle bill, ID number 11601.
Seconded by Dan Klein.
Thank you. And Barb Ekstrom can speak to this better than I can, so I'll let her do that.
Basically, we've been trying now for 7 years through the New York State Product Stewardship and through activists like Brian to see this happen. This is one of the most important things that municipalities need to activate, because number one, plastics, of course, I don't need to repeat the problems with plastics. Number two, our recycling costs have skyrocketed. And what this would do is it would allow a program where there would be a producer responsibility organization also with municipalities, if we can get it to go that way, that would require producers to pay, or manufacturers, for half the cost of the recycling programs. It is not fair for the burden of the cost of recycling that's mandatory in this state to be borne by government and not those that produce the packaging. So the bottle bill as well, we've been also very involved with trying to get that thing that's ancient back in the days of Brian and I when we were young people, to be expanded, both in terms of, additional types of materials such as liquor bottles, additional plastics, although we're hoping they go away. But the time has come to also increase. 5 cents means nothing. 10 cents is very common in states around the country. So I would urge you to move forward with this resolution that has multiple benefits for municipalities, and we will rejoice when this can come to fruition. Thank you.
Thank you, Barb. By the way, you're still very young. Any comments? Okay, I have Randy, Lee, and Mike Sigler.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring this forward. I think it is really important, and I want to thank the people that have worked on this. I think it's really important that we push back on manufacturers to be stewards for the products that they're shipping to us. Plastic is used because it's light and it's a lot less weight. The advantages of plastic are that you can ship more product and you're not shipping heavy glass or whatever. But still, we can't handle the products coming to us because it's low volume, spread out. It's very tough to collect and to manage, whereas manufacturers, large manufacturers, they have the technology, they have the systems, and they have the ability to make packaging recyclable, and we need to push back on them, so I'll vote for it. So.
Thank you, Randy. Lee Shurtleff?
I'm glad Barb's here. Just a question. Is there a sense in what the cost savings or fiscal impact might be to Tompkins County were this to be passed and signed into law by the governor?
It's a really good question. And here's I don't have a quick answer. I think we could give you one. Maybe not tonight, but let me tell you what the problem is by the time this takes place, it'll be about 2026. It's going to take that many years. And we will have a new contract at that point for the recycling center. And there's many things that are variables that could really change. I think that, I don't know if Leah's still here, but I think that we're talking in the millions in terms of savings. Maybe 1 to 1.5 million. Maybe, it could be, call it $1 million plus or minus, but that's my retired guess. I'll have to, have my staff take another look at that number and we'll share that. But I mean, anything significant considering, Lee, the recycling markets have plummeted even worse. And we are going to be facing, at least $300,000 additional shortfall. It could be up to $500,000 for this year, and who's to say for next year? And I think where we're going to be is no different than all the other counties that are trying to keep alive with recycling, where we luckily have an annual fee, but it is going to go up if. Up as things go on further with all of this. I hope that helps you a little bit.
It does, Barbara. Thank you, and I like the numbers you throw out, even if we're not sure they're right. But
it's as you think about it, we have a fund balance now that's great. It's over 20%, but we're required to keep a savings of 16%. And there's no question we're going to be at that difficult place where every year, you know, Mike and I have a conversation, we go back and forth about all this, and it's going to be, you know, it's going to stretch us some more. So we'll see what happens next. And Leo Riley is now the interim director, and he knows an awful lot. We've gone over some spreadsheets today, actually.
You know, my hesitancy on advising the legislature and the governor on legislation, but this clearly has an impact upon the local taxpayer and would be.
Oh, she needs a big kick. She really does, because Cuomo was, you know, it wasn't something that was ever going to happen. I mean, I went to Albany several times and met with senators and assembly people. I like to consider myself a realistic person. I'm not one end of the spectrum or the other, but the time is overripe here. Thank you, Lee. I hope you vote for it.
I'll help you give that kick, Barbara.
So I can imagine this week's Ithaca Times, it's going to be Barb Ekstrom versus the governor on the other side, not Shauna Black.
Well, I'm
passing the baton.
To say that, Sean, I wouldn't have been able to say that unless I retired. Right?
That's totally right. Mike Sigler and then Mike Lane.
I'm actually glad Barb is here too. Barb, I'm assuming you've read this whole thing. There's no poison pill in this, right? We vote for.
No, I wrote it with Kat and Brian.
No, I mean the state law, not you guys.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's nothing in there that later on I'm going to regret voting for this.
Oh my goodness, what a loaded question.
Yeah, you like that, right?
Well, you're not going to know where I am because I'm going to move to Colorado. But what I will tell you, Mike, is you've always been a reasonable person. We've always been able to see eye to eye on waste diversion. And I will tell you that there is no reason why you would vote against this if you wanted to lower our costs in our budget for recycling and you wanted to see things change.
Fair enough. Last question. It'll be a quick, maybe it won't be a quick one. Where does the money actually go? I mean, it goes to the state, then do we get it back?
Well, there's two different things that we're talking about here. It's hard to know right now, based on what has to happen next, if this legislation for the expanded producer responsibility goes through for packaging. It's going to be much like the other items that already have expanded producer approval. And that will directly impact, say, like, let's talk about paint. There's now an organization, Paint Care, where the county and other counties are now saving about $28,000 a year on our household hazardous waste costs because this is being borne now by producers. So in this case, it will also be the same thing. Whereas with the expanded bottle bill, it's really, I don't think there's going to be any change to how that's administered if it were to go to 10 cents an additional material. I think it would follow the same pattern.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you bet.
Mike Lane?
For all the reasons that Barbara just went over in the legislation, we ought to be in favor of this resolution asking the state to pass this bill. Thanks to the folks that came tonight to support this resolution because it means so much. I've been there with you, Barbara, on the deposits on the returnable bottles for a long time.
I know, you especially, Mike.
And going back when I was mayor, when they passed it, it went from having broken bottles all over our small park in Dryden to having none. It was that big a change. But you know, when I was a kid, this is like in the 50s, the deposit on a quart bottle, they didn't have 2 liters, but quart was the big bottle, was a nickel. And with a nickel, you could buy a standard Milky Way or Snickers bar. So that just kind of gives you an idea what a nickel on a deposit bottle today why it's insignificant, as she said. So that's so important, a part of this bill. And the other part about the packaging, for heaven's sakes, I can still remember slicing my hand on bubble packs, trying to get into them. And I can remember going back to stores and being able to buy individual items. Like you go to a hardware store, you could buy 11 screws if that's what you needed. You didn't have to buy a bubble pack with 25 in it. And it was a better way of doing things, and you didn't have that darn bubble pack to have to get rid of.
And that's not even recyclable, those bubble packs. And
That's
I
right.
will also say that there's no reason why everybody, like everybody said, everything's double wrapped in plastic. It's almost like an obsession.
Rich John?
I certainly don't want to be redundant here, but I was just going to mention I am fortunate to teach a course up at Cornell on compliance systems and effectively rule systems inside organizations. And one year I asked for Barb's help in that I had my class try to figure out plastic recycling and how to make the rules understandable. And for those, one of the speakers talked to it, plastic isn't plastic. It's all sorts of different materials. And in fact, it's divided into 7 categories and then more within those individual categories. And my students did a great job of trying to explain this, but I left that exercise deeply skeptical that the consumer could ever really effectively manage understanding plastic and its recycling. I really think this is a good step to try to do this in a more organized way, putting the cost on the parties that actually will understand their original product and its use around whatever they're packaging. So I support this. This is great. And Barb, thank you to you and your team for all the help you gave me back a few years ago.
Oh, that was great fun. I appreciate that you asked. And then I met your daughter, who was also into environmental work.
Yes, my environmental engineer daughter. Yeah.
That's what I am. Yeah, it's great.
Well, thank you for talking with her. So.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Let's do a roll call vote, please.
Deborah Dawson?
Yes.
Rich John?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
Ann Corman?
Absolutely.
Mike Lane?
Certainly, yes.
Greg Muzzy?
Yes.
Veronica Piller?
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff?
Yes.
Mike Sigler?
Yes.
Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
Yes.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Susan Curry?
Yes.
Shauna Black?
Yes.
14 ayes, unanimous vote.
Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, now that we've had all those opening acts and we're ready for the main event, hope our entertainment people appreciated that. Let's see here. That resolution came out of Housing and Economic Development Committee. So Greg Muzzy, would you like to?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move Resolution C, Doc ID 11571, Budget Adjustment Tourism Program 2023.
Seconded by Travis Brooks.
Do you want me to talk about it?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Well, I know that many of you have seen a number of different communications about this and have had a chance to read the packet in advance. This has to address a budget surplus in the 2022 tourism program budget and the allocation by the Strategic Tourism Planning Board to modify the 2023 budget with additional funding to professional services, development grants, the Strategic Tourism Plan, Convention and Visitors Bureau line items. There's a lot of detail in the resolution, which I'll spare going through and I guess open it up to members. And also, I know that Nick Hemholt and Katie Borgella are also here from the Planning Department if there's more technical questions.
Thank you, Greg. Amanda Champion?
Yeah, thanks. I will absolutely support this. I also appreciate everyone coming out to speak and am 100% behind supporting arts and culture in our community. However, knowing a proposed amendment that's going to come forward and some questions and concerns about that amendment, I make a motion to postpone this resolution until our next legislature meeting in 2 weeks.
Okay. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Randy Brown. Okay. There's a motion to postpone. Any comments? Are we allowed to do comments? Greg?
Yeah, I have something that I want to read. And there's specific names in here, so I'll paraphrase slightly.
So just to confirm, this is on the motion to postpone.
Sorry, to postpone. Yes, to postpone.
Okay.
I'm aware of messages from two organizations that say either explicitly or implicitly that they are in danger of going out of business soon if they do not receive an infusion of money. In the past, there have been disputes about how much should go towards arts organizations. I hope we can drop that somewhat theoretical discussion in the face of this emergency we are facing. If we lose these organizations due to theoretical principle or by citing procedural or definitional issues, we'll have failed in our mission and we'll have failed our community. The point is that we have an emergency situation and we have the funds on hand to address that emergency. I do understand and respect procedure. However, I will remind everyone that the procedures are self-imposed. I know that we cannot bail out any organization indefinitely. There may come a time when we have to accept a new reality that these established organizations no longer have a viable model for survival. But I'm not ready to accept that position yet. I will not stand by quietly while these organizations die, not on my watch. If Tompkins County were to lose these organizations in the same year, imagine how the public will feel knowing that there was over $1 million in non-property tax money sitting there to be used and we failed to do so. These words are not mine. These words are from Legislator Klein in an email to the Strategic Tourism Planning Board Budget Committee on February 21st, 2023. I echo those sentiments as a member of the Budget Committee and would strongly urge us not to table this and to move this forward, as we recognize by not just myself, but by those also around the table, that there is a need for further funding for the arts community and also for organizations that support the tourism and the strategic tourism plan. So I would ask you to not support tabling this evening.
Postponing.
Sorry, postponing. It's thank you. See, I guess definitions do matter sometimes. Yes. I'm so used to saying tabling. So postponing. I would urge you all not to postpone tonight. I feel that we've had ample time. This is not a new topic. This is not a new discussion. This has been at the legislature for years. And I think it's time that we put our money where our mouth is and made sure that we support these vital organizations to our community. And again, I strongly urge you not to table this and move this forward as recommended by the Strategic Tourism Planning Board.
Thank you. Dan Klein.
Thank you. Thanks, Greg. I'm not used to being quoted. It's kind of a funny feeling. I have a couple things I want to say. I'm going to see if I can, there's a few strands here, so I hope I don't mix them up too much. So this motion to postpone is because there were some questions raised, and it turns out that it's necessary to have a legal opinion about those questions, and we were not able to get a legal opinion in time for this meeting. That is the sole purpose of postponing. So I'm hoping that you will support that idea so that we can get all the facts that we need to make our decision and have a clean vote next time. I did say those words, and I meant it, and I still mean every single one of those words, because there's been a bunch of communications that have gone around about this topic, and in some people's opinions, it seems as if there's some suspicion that I'm trying to cut arts funding. And I don't know quite how that happened, but the opposite is true. All I have ever done is try to increase arts funding. So the work that I'm trying to do on this resolution will not touch arts funding. I will never propose anything to cut arts funding. It's never happened and it won't. David Squires mentioned that the percentage of funding in the hotel room tax that's dedicated to the arts has gone down over the years. Thank you for pointing that out. It is something that I have pointed out too. There was some activity that happened here 5 years ago. And at that time, I indicated that about 9% of the hotel tax money was going to the ACOT organizations. I did a quick back of the envelope calculation, and now it's like 7.5%. So it is my intention to increase arts funding. The motion to postpone is to receive the legal opinion. It is not to interfere with the arts funding at all. And so I think, I'll say one more thing. I do feel a sense of urgency. I don't think 2 weeks is gonna delay anything too badly. And in preparation for this meeting, I was going back through all my notes, this is just from this year about STPB, and all my emails. And I first wrote an email on this very topic urging some action to do what this resolution does to give this emergency funding. I first wrote that email on January 2nd this year. I wrote 8 more emails over the next 2 months, and no action happened. It was not until I invited myself to the Strategic Tourism Planning Board Budget Committee meeting, and that was on March 6th, I think. Yes, and they still had not formed a resolution yet. So there was no rush for those couple of months. 2 more weeks is not going to make a difference. Thank you.
Greg Muzzy and then Mike Sigler.
Yeah, that email on January 2nd was to me, in fact. And I've shortly followed up with a phone call to Katie Borgala and asked her what we could do. As you all know, and have also experienced frustration, we don't close out our books on January 4th or January 5th like maybe a for-profit entity would do. So STPB did not have the information of what a surplus may be on January 2nd. And Nick or Katie, please, if I'm saying anything that's incorrect, please correct me on that. We did look at ways to support the arts organizations and the tourism economy in Tompkins County through a number of different options. We weighed, do we start a new grant program with any additional surplus that we may have? Do we use existing grant programs that staff are already familiar with, that applicants are already familiar with? We made that decision. As we all know, and I am a big proponent, or I'm an opponent of sometimes, the glacial pace in which government moves. This again is just another example of the committee process working itself out, the budget committee meeting, other committees of the STPB meeting, then getting back to members, the general body of the STPB, putting those items for discussion, and then back to the committee for a vote and conversation. So a lot of that does take time. And we now have done what they have done what we have asked and put a resolution forward. The legal question at hand is if we are able to claw back or recoup those surplus funds is what the legal question at hand is. And I don't know if we can say that that wouldn't affect arts organizations, because the STPB Budget Committee and then the body of the STPB would need to then look at the totality of the surplus funds that are left and potentially make a new allocation or new determination of how to use those funds. So it's not as simple as saying we don't want to touch anything, because the legal question is, by law, are we able to take room tax dollars and put them back into the county's general fund? That's what we're waiting on an answer for. So we are looking to reduce the funding of the Strategic Tourism Planning Board because we are looking to take back a surplus based on the fact that in 2021, during a pandemic, we had a member-filed resolution, not asked by the members of the STPB, but asked for by a member of the legislature to fund that organization, and specifically to fund to a significant level the Convention and Visitors Bureau with an amount that would keep them open and not having to shutter their doors. Because if we didn't do that, would we be in this situation today, right? Would we be sitting here having that conversation? If we didn't make that investment and we said, you know what, this is not a priority, this is not important, we're not going to put additional resources in. Nobody knew in 2021. The STPB has also had a very conservative approach through COVID to their budget. Am I out of time?
Well, you're going off topic. We're still on the motion to postpone.
Yeah.
And I want to stick.
I'm just correcting some misinformation that was presented or trying to provide total information to what was.
Okay, let's try and stay on topic though, because this is just one little subset of probably where we're going to land. And
I just would hate to censor the facts.
Yep.
So I guess if Katie and Nick have any other comments on the timeline or what this would be doing, but I just wanted to make it clear and known what the legal question is and why we're asking that legal question. It's not just straightforward, and it's not just potentially not going to touch arts funding.
Okay. I would just remind all the future speakers if we could stick to comments on the motion to postpone. Mike Sigler, Rich John, and Ann Corman.
I've got a lot to say, but I'll try to be quick. One time I loaned a friend money, and I foolishly expected that back. And I feel a little bit similar here. I was really proud of us that we gave this money, to be honest with you, out of our fund. I mean, these places were closed by no fault of their own. They literally had to close and no income coming in. And I really feel like we as a county stepped up and said, you know, yeah, we're going to step in and save this. Because, I mean, I look at the State Theater and how many hours went in to rescuing this building. And if you've been to a show there, I was very sad that OAR was canceled, by the way, like days before. But it was something that so many people invested so much time into, and we were able to step in a time and really save that. And I don't want to go now 2 years on and reach back and grab that money back. I don't think that's right. It never sat with me right. So I don't really need a legal opinion. I appreciate what people are saying, like we want to table it for this reason. That reason, I don't need the reason. What?
Postpone.
Postpone. But I don't need the postponement. I just don't want to do it. I think this budget that they put forward is a solid one. I mean, I remember I was on SCPB years ago when I first came on the legislature. I think I was on it. So I know how much time these people invest into it. I think they're the best qualified people to actually decide how this room tax money is spent. And just a couple more things. I'm proud, too, of this investment we made. We got a great ROI on this, frankly. If you were to really look at it and say, there is an argument to be made, we spent this $500,000, we sped the bounce back, and now it's bounced really well. And now we're giving these folks an ability to really kind of solidify their position. I mean, that's great news for us, and I think we should be looking at it as great news, and I don't really want to pull it back into the general fund where it just kind of gets muddled. I think this was a good thing that we did. And again, I don't want to reach back that far. And I want to close with this. I've always been a supporter of the arts. I went and saw Seussical this year at my kids' school, and there's a reason I like it. There's a reason I go to all this stuff. And it's because one of the few things that's left that actually binds us, right? I used to like going to the water cooler and talking about Seinfeld. I used to like, going and
Boy, are you old.
right? I know. But that's the point, right? Those things don't really exist anymore that kind of bind us, it seems. And yet, I go to the Dave Matthews Show, and I've got a common cause with Amanda Champion, who I don't have very much common cause with. And yet, it is a binding principle. And I think that's what the art gives us. We're able to set aside some of these things that would get us all riled up. And just for a little while, we're able to kind of transcend that. And it is the thing that binds us. And it's the thing that binds us, frankly, as a community, too. I'm very impressed, by the way, with the numbers you folks brought in, because they never were good before. Like the percentage of people brought from out of county. The only thing that brought people to the county was the Science Center. I was like, God, really, the Science Center? Okay. But that was the thing that brought people in. But now we're looking at 44% for something. State Theater was even higher. I mean, that's a success story. That's something we should be like, yes, we're doing it. Thankfully, we're doing it. And I don't want to take a step backwards on that. So I don't want to postpone, and I want to vote this budget through. So thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Rich John, and then Ann Corman.
Thank you, and I'll speak to the main motion if we get there. But Mike, I think we should start a book club at the legislature. We put it on the agenda. We'll,
Their eyes were watching God. Just read it.
Okay.
There you go. That's the high school read. So. At Lansing, anyway.
I by inclination and profession, always in favor of getting legal advice, but in this instance, I don't see how the legal advice would change my view of our direction, so I will not vote for the motion to postpone. Thanks.
Thank you. Ann Corman?
Thanks, Madam Chair. For me, I'm boiling it down to one specific thing regarding this amendment to postpone. We do need more information, and in my view, the information, whether we can legally do this or not, is not the information that I need. What the information that I need is what is the room tax going to be next year? It's going up now. If it goes up for the next 2 or 3 years and we're going, hey, we want to look at restructuring where that money goes if we legally can, or reduce the amount that we charge for room tax. That's another possibility. But we have 1 year's worth of data, not enough. For me, I don't need time to consider this more, so I will be voting on not postponing. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to speak to the motion to postpone? Randy Brown?
It's a lot of money, and it's a good problem to have where your revenues are up quite a bit compared to prior year, especially from 2020. I do have some legal questions, and I don't want to ask them here. That's why I believe in postponing it. But also, I'd like to postpone it because I don't want to vote for the next resolution. So I'm hoping in 2 weeks this comes through, we get our answers, we vote, and it goes through. So that's my thought.
Thank you, Randy. Travis Brooks?
I'm with Rich and a few others. The arguments that were raised today about whether this is legal or not really didn't matter to me. Or the other motion. So I don't need to find out from the attorney. I'm good with voting no on the amendment and moving forward.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. I am actually going to support the motion to postpone because I think it's important to have all of the information. Whether I decide to vote on the resolution or not, if it's postponed, I don't know. So let's do a roll call on the motion to postpone.
Deborah Dawson?
Yes.
Rich John?
No.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
Ann Corman?
No.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Greg Muzzy?
No.
Veronica Piller?
No.
Lee Shirtliff?
Yes.
Mike Sigler?
No.
Travis Brooks?
No.
Randy Brown?
Yes.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Susan Curry?
Yes.
Shauna Black?
Yes.
I have 8 ayes and 6 noes. Motion passed.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Madam Chair? Yeah. Can we be guaranteed that I just want to make sure we have enough time within that 2 weeks to get the information? Because if it comes the day before the meeting, and again, Bill, this is nothing directed at you, I just want to make sure that my colleagues are on the same page so that another maneuver like this doesn't happen at the next meeting, where we know that we have enough time. And what is enough time? Is it the day before the meeting? Is it 2 days? Is it 3, 4, 5, a week? How much time do we really need to know and get that information to make a decision?
Bill Troy.
Yeah, to be clear, Greg, you called me over the weekend, and I think the first words out of my mouth were, I have a trial next week. I can't even touch this. It turns out, not to speak out of school, my deputy was coming back from vacation where she was sick as a dog, so I didn't know if she was going to be around. And I think I spoke to Dan also, and I said the same thing. I'm not trying to play sides here. I've got to get this case done, and it's going to be over with, the testimony anyway, by the end of the week, and I will work solidly on this until we come up with an answer.
No, that's great. I just want to make sure my colleagues that's ample time. And there was nothing directed at you, Bill.
Amanda Champion?
The motion was to postpone until the next meeting, period.
I think what his point was, though, is that, you know, it would be helpful if we didn't get the answers the day before the meeting.
I'll get them as soon as I can possibly do it.
Right. Thank you. Lee, did you have your hand up?
It was a question for Lisa. Is this one of the topics that will be part of the budget retreat, looking at the different funds, or?
No, it's not really germane to the budget retreat.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to standing and special committees. Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee, Veronica Piller, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee is meeting next Wednesday, a week from tomorrow at 3 p.m. We've officially adjusted our meeting time, so it'll be 3 to 5 p.m. each of the months that we are meeting. This is April 26th. Agenda is not set yet, but we will approve our bylaws, and then the Vice Chair, Rachel Graham, and I have been going through our committee goals, which we did set last time, and sorting out things we can work on now versus later, and we'll be looking more into that with specifics to come. One thing we're definitely going to discuss is the calendar of heritage months and proclamations and things like that. And that's all.
Any questions or comments for Veronica? Thank you, Veronica. Public Safety Committee, Rich John, Chair.
The Public Safety Committee will be meeting this Thursday at 3 o'clock. Other than that, I just wanted to advise of the jail numbers. We were at 65 with 3 board outs, which is, again, the numbers have been running quite a bit higher in the last several months. But that's what the numbers are.
Thank you. Randy Brown?
Yeah, Rich, the number keeps going up. Overall understanding of why it's going up so quickly? Or?
We've talked about it at several meetings. It seems to be a combination of things. One is there has certainly been an uptick in violence, with gun-related crime. We're looking to get a grant directly related to that, which I'm very happy it's timely. But there's also a backlog of trials. The DA has trials, I think, scheduled all the way through September. So we've got some people waiting to get into court. Then the rest is a combination of people on sanction from one of the treatment courts or on a parole violation or waiting to go to state prison. But the numbers, we're just seeing more people right now. I don't think it's any trend away from our ATI programs by the magistrates and judges in the courts. It's just we have a backlog.
Any other questions or comments for Rich John? Okay, thanks, Rich. Health and Human Services Committee, Dan Klein, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Health and Human Services Committee met yesterday, and it was a very light meeting. We really did not, we just mostly had departmental updates and a few odds and ends. I will mention a few community events that were mentioned at that meeting, and I will help publicize them further. One is the Mac and Cheese Bowl, which is a fundraiser for FoodNet Meals on Wheels. It's an annual event. It takes place May 3rd from 4:30 to 7 o'clock at the Ithaca Farmers Market. They have meat and non-meat and vegan and gluten-free options. But if you buy your tickets in advance, it's a little cheaper. And there'll be approximately 20 vendors there having different kinds of mac and cheese. Another event to mention is the County Office for the Aging Open House. That's going to be on Friday, May 12th from 1 to 4. At 2 o'clock, they will be doing a brief ceremony to award Senior Volunteer Awards. There'll be snacks, there'll be raffles, there'll be vendors there or tables there of different organizations and such that serve older Americans. May is Older Americans Month. That is our next meeting is May 15th. We have 2 items scheduled right now. One is an update from Whole Health on tobacco enforcement that was requested after last meeting's discussion about tobacco issues. And then also, we're going to have a presentation from the Human Services Coalition on the agency review process. So just to mention briefly, we, as part of our budget, fund, I'm not sure, a dozen or 15 not-for-profit organizations in the health and human services field. And rather than us dealing directly with each organization, it's funneled through the Human Services Coalition through this process. So we thought it would be helpful for the legislators to understand what that process is a little better that the Human Services Coalition performs for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Any questions or comments for Dan? Okay. Next, we have Housing and Economic Development Committee, Greg Muzzy, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We last met the day after our last meeting, I think, on April 5th. We had a presentation from the Ithaca Area Economic Development Organization. We also heard from the Ithaca Board of Realtors and the New York State Association of Realtors, as well as had the CVB, the Convention and Visitors Bureau annual report. Our next meeting is May 3rd at 3 p.m. I do have 2 resolutions. The first, Resolution I, Spring 2023 Community Celebration Grant Awards, ID 11548, and I will move that.
I have a seconder, please. Seconded by Mike Lane.
Sorry, I'm scrolling through here to get to the right spot. Apologies for my technical difficulty here. The benefit of going paperless. This is the Spring Community Celebration Grant Awards. It's pretty straightforward. Number of municipalities listed here and the awards that they benefit. Happy to answer any specific question if there are any.
Okay. Any questions or comments for Greg Muzzy? Okay, let's do a roll call vote, please. Oh, wait. Mike, did you abstain in the last one? Did you want to abstain for this?
Yes, yes.
Celebration grant?
Yep.
Okay.
Deborah Dawson?
Yes.
Rich John?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Greg Mezzi?
Yes.
Veronica Piller?
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff?
Yes.
Mr. Sigler abstain. Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
Yes.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Susan Curry?
Yes.
Shauna Black?
Yes.
We have 13 ayes and 1 abstention. Motion passes.
All right, the next one I have is Resolution J, Doc ID 11549, Spring 2023 Tourism Advancement Grants. This is to support projects and marketing campaigns to attract visitors to our local community. I'll move that resolution.
Can I have a seconder, please? Seconded by Travis Brooks.
If there's any specific questions, I'm happy to answer those. It's relatively straightforward and all the detail is in the resolution.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay, let's do a roll call vote, please.
Mike, sorry, Mike also, are you abstaining from this one as well?
Yes. Yeah, thank you.
Deborah Dawson?
Yes.
Rich John?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Greg Mezzi?
Yes.
Veronica Piller?
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff?
Yes.
Mr. Sigler abstained. Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
Yes.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Susan Curry?
Yes.
Shauna Black?
Yes.
13 ayes, 1 abstention. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Nothing else to report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Facilities and infrastructure. Oh, sorry, questions. Rich John.
Yeah. Do you have any sense of your agenda for your May 3rd meeting yet?
Not yet. I'll get this week together and get that out.
Thank you.
You know, I just had one. I read in the Ithaca Voice about the Human Services Coalition and their housing plan. Have you looked at it?
They have not come to the committee yet.
Yeah, it was kind of surprising to me. I mean, it looked like a great plan, but I had not heard
Yeah, I will
any
make
of it.
sure we get them on the agenda.
Okay, that'd be great. Lisa, Lisa?
They did present that plan at Health and Human Services last year.
Oh, okay. It looks like a new plan, like pretty different though, from what I think it's the same? Huh,
It's just
okay.
like finalized instead of a draft.
Oh, okay. Dan Klein?
Yeah, so it is a little updated,
Okay.
but also what we had decided at our committee last year, now homelessness over there, is that we were going to wait till the homeless services coordinator was on board so that that person could have a chance to give us feedback on the.
That's
on the
great.
plan.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions or comments? Thank you, Greg. On to Facilities and Infrastructure Committee, Mike Lane, Chair.
Thank you. We will be meeting next on Thursday, April 20th at 9 a.m. We've got a heavy agenda. We'll be talking about a lot of things, everything from culverts to our buildings on Tioga Street. I went to the ITCTC meeting today, Ithaca Tompkins County Transportation Council, the policy committee, and pretty standard meeting, but thought you might be interested in knowing something that Dave Smith, who is the regional director of the New York State Highway Department up in Syracuse, told us about a new device that they have regarding driving through work zones, particularly on the interstate highways and some of the bigger highways where people are notorious for speeding when they shouldn't be, ignoring the slow down speeds. And they've been, unfortunately, tragic events where workmen have been seriously injured. Anyway, their new device is called an Automated Work Zone Speed Enforcement program, I should say. And what will happen is when you go through a work zone, if you are speeding, it will take a picture of your license plate and you will receive a ticket in the mail. So you don't even have to be stopped by a police officer. I thought you might be interested in that.
Thank you,
That's all I
Mike.
have. Unless Randy has anything he wants to add.
Any questions or comments for Mike? Okay, thank you. Next, Government Operations Committee, Amanda Champion, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We meet April 6th. We had a somewhat short agenda, but we still had some good discussions on Robert's rules. We did discuss the difference between tabling and postponing. There is a difference. Tabling means that you table something in the meeting you're in until a later point in the meeting. If you postpone something to a different date, it can be to a specific date or the next meeting. Let's see, we also talked about weighted voting a little bit more. As most of you probably know, Mike Lane has brought forward the idea of having weighted voting on this legislature due to the changes in the census and the population and redistricting. After having it come up several times in this past couple months, the majority of the committee decided to not move forward and ask our staff to do any work on this. It is absolutely Mike's or anyone else's prerogative if they want to bring forward a member-filed resolution to ask the whole legislature what they believe. But the committee is not going to pursue that anymore. And then on a different note, I would just mention, I don't know if folks know, but our communications director, Dominic Recchio, has convened a group of various department heads and stakeholders to talk about our county website and looking at over the next year if we want to improve it, change it, what the website needs, how can it work better for our community and our users. So we met once last week, and I think we have 2 more scheduled. So if folks are interested, we can certainly send you the information, but at this point, I think it's mostly gathering information and seeing what folks feel is necessary. I feel like there was something else, but maybe not. And I have a resolution.
Okay, any questions for Amanda? Randy Brown, Mike Lane?
I am interested in the website stuff, so including that. I know you talked about term limits last year, and you guys didn't have enough people to be interested in that. But it's one common thing I hear from Republicans, Democrats, that we need term limits. It's just not, we shouldn't have people in there for 30, 40 years. It's crazy. So I support that if it ever comes up again. So.
Okay. Thanks. I'll make a note.
Thanks, Randy. Mike Lane?
Yeah, I just want to say that Amanda correctly described the conversation at the meeting about weighted voting. I firmly believe that this is a constitutional issue that we should take seriously. It was exacerbated by the failure of this legislature on a 7-7 vote to shorten our terms so that we would not have to go so long. What I was talking about in committee and discussion was a short-term, 3-year use of weighted voting so that we would be equalized from district to district and we would get closer to one person, one vote. And if you don't think that that's important, ask yourself, why did the state change its requirement at the state level that we, instead of have a 10% deviation between districts, could only have a 5% deviation between districts, which was one of the surprises that our Independent Redistricting Commission was faced with when it was trying to come up with a new scheme. That's about one person, one vote, which is a constitutional issue going back to, I think, 1962, when the Supreme Court started the cases such as Baker versus Carr. So I think this is very important, and I'll just leave it at that tonight.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Okay, thank you, Amanda.
Okay, Resolution K, appropriation from contingent fund, terminal pay, information technology services, ID 11529.
Can I have a seconder, please? Seconded by Lee Shirtliff. And
standard, someone leaves the department and budget adjustment.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay, let's do a roll call vote.
Deborah Dawson?
No. Oh, yes.
Rich
Sorry.
John?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Greg Muzzy?
Yes.
Veronica Piller?
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff?
Yes.
Mike Sigler?
Yes.
Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
Yes.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Susan Curry?
Yes.
Shauna Black?
Yes.
14 ayes, unanimous vote.
Thank you. That passes. Okay,
I think that's all. Yeah,
Thank you,
thanks.
Amanda. Planning, Energy, and Environmental Quality Committee, Ann Corman, Chair. Or would you like Veronica to take this one over? I see you're being pacified with your cat there.
Buttercup and I would like Veronica to take it over.
Very good.
All right, thank you both. And Annie, you and Buttercup can step in if I miss anything. The Planning, Energy, and Environmental Quality Committee met yesterday, and it was a robust meeting and agenda. A few things I want to highlight. Well, we already discussed a resolution and approved a couple more. One of them was about partnering with Gravity Renewables to sell renewable energy credits. We already passed that, but I know some folks had some questions about it, and so I'd encourage you to go back to the meeting where Terry Carroll and a representative from Gravity explained how this worked, and it certainly helped me a lot to better understand what was going on. We also had a bunch of updates from the Recycling and Materials Management Department. A piece of bad news they shared was that the costs of, what other people pay us for our recyclable materials has gone way, way down. Currently the price is at like less than half of what they budgeted for in this year's budget, and so We'll see where that goes. Hopefully it will continue to rise back up. But the good news is that the department has enough in their reserves to just totally cover the losses compared to their budget and still have enough reserves yet for the 16% they're required to have. So we appreciate them for that. We also had the 2022 reports from a couple of our advisory boards, the Environmental Management Council and the Water Resources Council. Or is it the Environmental Management Council? What is, yeah, great, thank you. And so you can check that out if you're interested. A couple things to highlight. The EMC is partnering with a lot of organizations on many things, including flood mitigation and response. And Shauna already mentioned the FEMA events happening next week, but I'll remind everyone again, it's really exciting to have FEMA representatives here in person and to please attend and tell your constituents to attend. They also counted up that the EMC collectively contributed 500 hours, like person hours of work to this community last year. So that is pretty cool, and we thank them for that. And the Water Resources Council also doing a lot. I think you all should have received an email today from Darby Kiley with a letter they are sending in their like advocacy to the state vein that they're sending to the DEC and EPA, trying to get them to prioritize and expedite completion of a clean water plan for Cayuga Lake, which has stalled out. I don't know if there's more that we can do to push them along, but I'd love to hear about that. They also extended an impromptu invitation to go tour the Cornell Lake Source Cooling Plant. So I went there yesterday. So thanks, WRC, for that. It was very, I'm trying not to say cool. I don't know. It was
cooling.
Yeah, it was loud, honestly. But yeah, it was really interesting. I learned a lot. The plant is very clearly set up to be toured and explain things. I'll show pictures later to anyone who wants it.
Do you just show up?
No, well, I don't think, so one thing is it doesn't actually need anyone on site to run. So if you show up, probably no one will be there. But I think, it is my impression that they encourage people learning about it, but I'm not trying to promise their tour guide time.
Any other questions or comments for Veronica Piller? Okay, thank you, Veronica. Oh, Annie?
I just add one thing quick that, and I can't remember if the EMC announced this yesterday, but I know from attending their last meeting, they are working on hosting the state EMC conference here in Ithaca in September. So that's pretty big thing, and I'm not saying they're asking us for money or anything, but I'm hoping we can support them with anything that they need, whether it's publicity or guidance or whatever, but I'm really happy that they're doing that.
Great, thanks, Ann. Veronica?
Sorry, that reminded me, related to the conference and also generally, the EMC is trying to engage youth more, like specifically, they're doing that with college students, but specifically with high schoolers as well. So if you have any leads, please follow up and connect back with Kate Darfler or me or Annie or someone.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you. Next is Community Recovery Fund Advisory Committee, Dan Klein, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So every legislator should have received an email yesterday with a bunch of information about this. If you did not receive it, please let me know, right away or right after this meeting. In that email was a list of all the eligible applications and applicants. There are now 35. That is the number we're working with. Legislators will be spending this week, if they choose to, ranking those 35 applicants in terms of which ones they want to fund and by how much amount of money, and there's detailed instructions in the email. So our consultant will take all that information, merge it all into one spreadsheet, and that will be published next Tuesday, April 25th, in the agenda packet for the Community Recovery Fund Advisory Committee. That's when everyone will get a chance to see the merged results. The committee meeting itself is a week after that, May 1st. The committee will vote on a final package and send that to the full legislature, which will happen later in May. To be honest, I'm not sure which date, if it's the next day, May 2nd, or the second half of May. But either way, the final vote should come to the legislature in May, and hopefully we will have accomplished our task by then. So if you have any questions tonight, or as you work through the worksheet, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. That's my report.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Dan Klein? Okay, thanks, Dan. And last but not least, Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee, Deborah Dawson, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We had a very short and sweet meeting last Monday, passed some routine resolutions. I think the matter that's probably most of interest to all of you is that we have a committee of Amanda Champion, Rich John, and Veronica Piller, who will be working with our HR Commissioner Ruby Pulliam to develop a better system for evaluating our direct reports. A big piece of that is going to be putting together a list of what our expectations are of these direct reports. And so you will probably all be hearing from someone on the committee or from Ruby directly for your input. And when you get that request, please be generous with your time and thoughtful with your submissions. And other than that, we didn't really have anything from the meeting, but I want to take this opportunity to thank Drew Brayman for the outstanding job he's done as our interim director of finance, acting director of finance. At Shauna's suggestion, I've been having a phone meeting every Monday morning with Drew for the last couple of months, maybe even longer. And despite the health issues he's been going through, I think he only missed 1 or 2 weeks. His commitment to the county and doing the best job he can for us is admirable. I've really appreciated his dedication, and I've enjoyed the opportunity to get to know him better. So thank you, Drew.
Thank you.
Also, just a reminder that we are going to have our budget retreat. What day is that? Next week?
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday.
Woohoo!
And I have reached out to Amos Malone, who runs our restaurant at the airport. They are happy to provide us with food. I'm going to get a menu, and we'll figure out that. And, of course, legislators will figure out payment and all that. So just wanted to let everyone know that I'll be sending the menu along. I highly recommend the cheesesteak. It's one of the best. Mike Lane?
So it's clear, this is not a taxpayer expense, it's our own expense.
That's right. That's right. All of you, if you're interested in eating, will be paying for it. So, Greg Muzzy?
Yeah, if anybody hasn't had a chance to eat at the airport, you just don't have to fly out of the airport. You can go in, you can get parking validated, and you can have a great lunch with an interesting view. So I would highly recommend it. I know they desperately need our support, as every restaurant during this period needs our support, but they do an incredible job, and Deb and I have bonded over the cheesesteak. Similar to Amanda and Mike with Dave Matthews, Deb and I over a cheesesteak, get out of the way. So highly recommend.
Food is a powerful, powerful attraction.
So powerful.
Okay. Let's, sorry, Rich John?
I just wanted to add the Tompkins County Industrial Development Agency was supposed to meet today. We ended up short on quorum for a variety of reasons, but I had one item of information I just wanted to share, that a project went through financing and delivered $230,000 for the Community Housing Development Fund, which is just, I think, really good news.
Okay, we have minutes of the previous meeting from April 4th, 2023. Can I have a mover? Oh, Ann Corman?
I'm sorry to hold that up, but I just wanted to say I anticipate that Veronica and I will bond over the veggie burgers up at Amos's restaurant at the airport.
Very good. Okay, can I have a mover for the minutes of the previous meeting, April 4th, 2023, moved by Rich John, seconded by Deborah Dawson. Any comments, corrections, changes? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote.
Deborah Dawson?
Yes.
Rich John?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Greg Mezzi?
Yes.
Veronica Piller?
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff?
Yes.
Mike Sigler?
Yes.
Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
Yes.
Amanda Champion?
Yes.
Susan Curry?
Yes.
Shauna Black?
Yes.
14 ayes. Thank you.
Thank you. And we will break to have executive session for the purposes of collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law and the proposed acquisition, sale, or lease of real property, or the proposed acquisition of securities, or sale or exchange of securities held by such public body, but only when publicity, I think that's supposed to be publicly, would substantially affect the value thereof. And we're also going to have a third topic, the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. Can I have a mover, please? Moved by Deborah Dawson, seconded by Veronica Piller, and we'll do a roll call.
Deborah Dawson?
Yes.
Rich John?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
Ann Corman?
Yes.
Mike Lane?
Yes.
Greg Mezzi?
Yes.
Veronica Piller?
Yes.
Lee Shirtliff?
Yes.
Mike Sigler?
Yes.
Travis Brooks?
Yes.
Randy Brown?
Yes.
Amanda Champion? Susan Curry?
Yes.
Shauna Black?
Yes.
14 ayes.
Okay, let's take a 15-minute recess and come back at 8 o'clock.
Is Buttercup allowed to stay?
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
She's sleeping, so it's okay.
I think county admin.
And for